Hello, welcome to the Political Processes Packet. Today we're going to have a discussion about electoral college, who votes, who can vote, different things like that. So on the left here, you can see the Political Process Packet. This is what you should have in front of you right now. On your right on the screen, you see the Active Inspire flip chart. So what we're going to do is kind of guide you through this packet little by little. So you are going to go and essentially complete the packet, and as you watch the video, you're going to see stuff that's going to line up with it, just like this first page says voter registration. So your goal, though, is to complete the packet and then go through, watch this video, and you can follow along. If you get stuck, it'll really help you out with understanding. Okay, so first part of political process is you got to register to vote. Those are the people you need to sign up to vote. It's like when you play any sports, you have to register. You got to sign up. You can't just walk on to play. So specifically, what are those requirements, those qualifications to register to vote in an election? So there's three. Number one is you have to be a citizen, okay, of the United States. Number two is you gotta be a resident. You live where you vote. That makes sense. And of course, you have to be at least 18 years of age before the day of the general election. Okay? So, where can I register to vote? Well, you can register to vote at the registrar's office, the place where you can sign up. Most people, though, tend to register at the Division of Motor Vehicles or the Department of Motor Vehicles. Um, as you walk in the door of the DMV, you see registration sign immediately above, at least in Loudoun County, you do. Or you can go to designated location. You just Google it, look it up online. Or, of course, mail in. They don't accept internet quite yet. Virginia is not on board in doing that. There's only one state at the moment that is starting to really push for it and make it regular. But in Virginia, you cannot register on the internet yet. Then, of course, you have to do it 22, kind of like the Taylor Swift song, 22 days before the election. So if you turn 18 before the election, you can actually register just as long as you get your registration in 22 days. Okay? So, looking at your voter ID card, you guys should take a minute to complete it. Fill it in. It's kind of a little bit extra practice for yourself. So I would say my name is Chris Buffone. I am a citizen of the United States. Check. State of residency, Virginia. And then I check that I registered at least 22 days. And I registered at the DMV. Or you could say you registered by who was the person. So actually, in real life, for me, I was registered in high school through my government class when I was a senior. So now, looking at voter participation. Voter participation really comes down to education, age, and income. And that really gives you a snapshot of who's going to be voting also. Who's most likely to vote. So if you're running for office, you can target certain segments of the population to really encourage to come vote for you. Because you more than likely know they're going to come out and vote. So the education level, the higher the education, the more likely you are to vote. Means if you have a doctorate, you're more likely to vote than somebody who has a master's degree. If you have a high school degree, you're more likely to vote than somebody who dropped out of high school. Age is the same. The older you are, the more likely you are to vote. And then income is kind of how much money you earn. So like in civics, we've been learning about income, which is the money you make from working. So usually the more income you make, normally the more likely you are to vote. So if you're like the Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, you make billions of dollars, you're more likely to vote than somebody who works a job that only pays $8 an hour, which is not very much. But they're less likely to vote. So if you're thinking about this, you should imagine seeing like statistics or some sort of graph if you're thinking of like question. So it's not as simple as who's most likely to vote. You're going to see some sort of graph or some sort of chart that'll say of these people who's most likely to vote. So just think about it logically, okay? So the older you are, the more money you make, the higher education, the more likely you're to vote. So voter participation, I think this is pretty straightforward for you guys. Really just think about voters don't vote because they don't care. We're seeing that a lot in this presidential election coming up. A lot of people are feeling very disillusioned. They're not very motivated. Maybe they don't like the candidates, so they choose not to vote. They just forget they vote. We don't have a national holiday for voting, so people sometimes are like, oh, right, the election was today. So they forget, especially during those state and local elections. People tend to forget those exist, that those go on. Okay, this last year in Virginia, we only had about 25% voter turnout in those state and local elections. And presidential elections tend to have over 50 normally. So, main thing is, think about this logically. Every vote's important. So, what I just told you here is people tend to vote in presidential elections. I tend to think it's more important than state and local elections. Okay? So, state and local elections, though, are very important because most of the stuff that affects you, like you have state speed limits, you go to public schools, which are run by the local government, and you're taking the state SOL. A lot of people don't tend to vote in those elections. So, what ends up happening is state and local government gets represented by those people who vote, but it tends to be a smaller percentage of people versus presidential. You tend to see all these commercials about it. You always hear about the president. Every one of you, when you walked in the door, you could name who the president was. So what you should do is take the opportunity now to create your voter. My voter that I always like to create is the Monopoly Man. He's got a little monocle. He's got a cane. He's got a top hat. Very wealthy. That's my kind of voter that I tend to think of. But I want you to be creative. Think of your own voter. Now, when you go to vote, who are you going to vote for? So, you'd vote for either Democrat, Republican, or a third party. So, looking at this slide here, who's more likely to vote? The $30,000, $120,000? You're right, the $120,000. The one who makes more money. You can see he's a doctor, more than likely, so he has more education also. And it looks like he might be a little bit older than those two also. So, during which election do most people vote in? This is what we just talked about. We have the state and local election or the national election. If you said or thought to yourself the one on the right, the state and local election with Virginia, you'd be correct. Or incorrect, I should say. More people tend to vote in the one on the left, the presidential elections. And then, of course, here's a graph. Who votes when? And you can see, looking at it, the one I'm tracing over, it's higher percentage, and it says percentage of registered voters who voted. There's a higher percentage in the gray years versus the darker gray years. And it says non-college citizens versus college. So who voted more likely, or mostly based on these facts? The college citizens. So, what are my two political parties? They're going to be Republicans and Democrats. These are what most Americans vote for. So what do? How are they similar? In many ways they're similar in the sense that they want to influence policy. They want to win elections. Because if you win elections, you can influence policies. And policies are like the rules that are made for the public. So public is like us, the people. It's made by the government. The policies mean rules. Sometimes you hear it as school policy. They're going to reflect both liberal and conservative viewpoints. So Democrats tend to lean a little more liberal, but they're going to also appeal to those conservatives. There's very much a mix in there. Same with Republicans. They tend to lean a little more conservative. They tend to want to keep things kind of the same or similar, but they're going to also have liberals in there. They're going to be different. And of course, they define themselves for majority support. So what that means is they're appealing to the political center. Most Americans tend to be a little bit of liberal, a little bit conservative. They're kind of in the middle. They like a little bit of both sides. So in order to win, you have to get the most votes. And where are most people? In the middle, those moderates to the political center. How are they different? Well, they both want to influence policy, like gun control, immigration, but they're different in their platforms. How do they want to go about doing it? How do you want to control guns or not control guns? Right? So what they do, they go around campaigning. You guys have already been seeing a lot of campaign commercials for Trump, Clinton, Ted Cruz before that, Bernie Sanders. They're campaigning about if you elect them, what are they going to do for you? It's the platform. The platform is what they do. So platform means the views or beliefs of the party. And remember, little trick, this isn't always true, but to help you remember Republicans, and we have usually Democrats. Something to kind of lock in. Usually want Democrats usually want more of stuff related to government, usually a little bit more government, which means you have to pay a little more in taxes, but you also get more services like police, firefighters. And then there's Republicans who would like to lower taxes, which means it could end up cutting into like teachers or military or something like that. But it also means you get more money in your pocket. So you can decide how to spend it rather than the government deciding how to spend it. So, and of course, you have, last but not least, the third parties. How do they differ? Well, they kind of know normally they're not going to win, but what they really care about is staying focused on a major issue. So they focus on introducing new ideas in one particular issue. They really want to stress that because they feel like the majority, those major parties, aren't representing them. So they're going to introduce new ideas. Like Green Party would want 100% clean energy or more clean energy. They want to push those ideas. One political personality that existed though was Theodore Roosevelt. He was one of those third-party leaders who, very few of them have existed when running for president. He's one of those people who was charismatic, like went out of his way to meet people, and people loved him. And he just became one of those third parties that really influenced an election. So, in a way, he actually stole votes from some of the other major political parties when he ran for president against them back in the early 1900s. Just know, bold moves, Theodore Roosevelt, big political personalities. Like, imagine a celebrity started their own third party, like Kanye West, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Peyton Manning. We automatically know who they are. So people tend to just listen to them. So they automatically have a message out there that people follow them. So what you're going to do now, you're going to go through on the bottom half of your page, and you're going to organize where you think these major and third party ones go. Okay, now while you're doing that, I'm going to go through right now and do this myself with you. So, organize to win. This is going to be the major parties. Organize to win. Going to be those major parties. Influence public policy. Major party. Liberal. Major party. More taxes. Major party. Revolves around a political personality. Nope, that's going to be a third party, like the Theodore Roosevelt we talked about. Conservative. Introduces new ideas. We know that's going to be G for third parties. Appeals to the political center. Remember, most individuals are there in the political center. So H, less taxes. More regulation. And remember, those two, we're just saying in very general, those two political parties, those two major parties right now. And then, of course, less regulation. And then finally, focus on one issue. There. So hopefully you came to these conclusions. If you didn't, that's okay. That's why we're here to learn. Okay? Now we're going to go on to separating out even more. Organized to win. A. They're both organized to win. They both want to influence public policy. B. Democrats tend to be more liberal, but someone could argue that Republicans also maybe have liberal viewpoints. A few of them. More taxes. We're going to cross out that one and put D there. Revolves around a political personality. E. Republicans are F. Here. And Democrats also have some conservatives. Introduce new ideas. G. Appeals to the political center. Both Democrats and Republicans. They're both major parties. Less taxes. More regulation. Remember, Democrats. Less regulation for Republicans. And focus on one issue. But right here. So we just broke down what we did on the last slide. We just broke it down a little bit more. That's all. Make sure you feel comfortable with that. So, what is the function of political parties? Well, we said what they want to do, how they're similar or different. So now we're saying what they want to do. Their main functions are to help candidates win. So you should be looking at functions of political parties right here. So they nominate, means they pick candidates. Like we saw recently, Donald Trump looks like he's going to win the Republican nomination for running for president. Last election, 4 years ago, Mitt Romney won the Republican nomination, and he ran against Barack Obama, who won the Democratic nomination. So they pick people. They try to identify good candidates that people will like. They help candidates succeed, so they put up signs. They have people wear shirts, posters, different things like that. So if you see anything like this win by raising money, then it's going to help the candidate succeed, which means they win office. The electorate. So what they do, they educate. They say, this is what this person believes, so they want to get the message out to the public. And the more they get their message out there, the more likely they are to get people to vote for them, or at least inform them of their platform. What are their ideas? So like Barack Obama ran on the idea of like change we can believe in. You want to fix things. Where now this one is talking about monitoring or watching actions of office holders. So if a Democrat did something wrong, Republicans going to go and try to make the public aware of that. Same thing with Republicans. If they did something wrong, Democrats would do a similar thing and try to make the public aware of it. So they're trying to point out, like, oh, they're doing this bad. You shouldn't like this person because they're doing it bad. So we're going to fix it and replace it and do it better. Okay? So it's kind of a way to keep a watch on each other. So they monitor. So practice of political, they organize. So this is just kind of a slide, just images of what you could see if you get asked a question about it, or what you see in real life about the functions of political parties. Change regularly, they're giving a message, they're nominating, they're telling he broke his promise, they're showing, George Allen's running for Senate, so they're educating us. Okay? So when you guys run for office, when candidates run for office, political parties have to pay for it. So it costs a lot of money to pay for it. So what they do, they have to say, well, all right, we know campaigning means running for office. We know finance means money. So they have to figure out how we're going to get money to run for office. Okay? So let's talk about that. So the cost of running for office requires extensive fundraising. It means they have to raise a lot of money. Like you guys, for example, for the charity mini-thon did fundraising. Well, they do the same thing. Democrats and Republicans do the same thing, but it's to raise money to help someone run for office. So the word fundraising. They sell totes, like this mug. I remember I talked about the George Bush socks that the Republicans were selling on their website. That you can buy them, and some of the money goes to help fund their campaigns. It limits opportunities to run for office. If it's really expensive to run for office, people aren't going to, and it's become very expensive to run for office. It's kind of like if Mr. Vaughn wants to go to Disney World, but it costs thousands of dollars, I'm not going to go because I can't afford it. The wealthy have a huge advantage. They can run. They can use their own money. They don't have to spend time asking people for money because they already have lots of money. It encourages the development of something called PACs, Political Action Committees. They're like Pac-Man. And what they do, they pack in the cash. Their only job is literally to raise money for the person running for office. And then, last but not least, interest groups have increased influence. They're willing to give money to the candidates running for office. However, they kind of expect you to help them out in return. So, what does reform mean exactly? This isn't on your notes packet, but I just want you to think about it. It means to fix or improve a problem. So you hear campaign finance reform. So they're saying the spending, it's really costly to run for office. So average people are finding it expensive to run for office. So they try to fix it. So government tried stopping the rising costs by passing campaign finance laws that kind of manage the amount of money put into campaigns. So because these laws limits exist on the amount of money that individuals may contribute to campaigns and candidates. So what that means is a person like me or like you can only give a certain amount to the person running for office, at least directly to them. Okay? So, think about who has an advantage running for office here. Barack Obama in 2008 was a Democrat. He's a lawyer. John McCain, he was the presidential nomination for Republicans. And then we have a teacher here. So thinking about this logically, who would have the advantage? If you guys thought the lawyer and Navy admiral, you'd be right, because they tend to make more. So it gives them a big advantage. Usually people who run for president tend to be really well off. So going down, evaluating the mass media. You guys, just think about this logically. Mass media, it's stuff you use every day. Internet, telephone, magazines, radio, newspapers. It's things that reach large groups of people. So in mass media, you have different roles. So the main role we're going to focus on is the role related to elections. What do they do during elections? Well, they inform you about the people running for office. That's how you know Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton's running for office. They allow you to write in to them and share your opinions. So back before the internet, it was something called, it still exists, but it's something called op-eds in newspapers. So they published political cartoons. You got to state your opinion about what was happening. Now you can just kind of publish stuff online, but if you're sending it to a mass media part, they can show it, okay? Political cartoons is like the fun images that kind of like tease about something serious going on. Emphasize selected issues. So you might have heard about the presidential election going on with right now this year, but maybe you didn't hear about the local election going on because the news is stressing so much these selected issues. You might not have heard about something else important going on around the world because they kind of narrow us down to what they think the public wants to hear. And then they strive to broadcast different points of view. So a lot of you talked to me this year about the Democratic debates and the Republican debates this year. So showing all the different viewpoints, even within their own parties. So what do you do with all these candidates with everything going on? It's kind of like a whirlwind. So how do you make good choices? How do you stay informed? Well, you got to focus on detecting bias. It's kind of like, what are they sort of leaning towards? What are they trying to push you towards? Okay. Evaluate the source. Is it reliable? Just because a source says something doesn't mean it's necessarily good. I really used to like the State Farm commercial. The guy pretends to be French, and he's like, oui, oui, and he's obviously, she met him on the internet, but it's obviously he's not French, so she didn't do a good job of evaluating her sources. Okay, separating fact from opinion. They say, I believe. It's an opinion. If they even say it's a fact, you got to think about, like, if they say, oh, that's a fact, doesn't necessarily mean it's a fact, they're just saying it's a fact. Okay, and identify propaganda. Think of the emotions they're trying to make you feel. It's a big driver in how we do stuff, okay? And then I want to go back to detecting bias. Remember, bias is how to make you think a certain way. Propagandas make you feel a certain way. So bias is brain for think. Propaganda is heart for feel. Okay? And now, how do we go about, I'm going to skip the Electoral College vocabulary for a second, and I'm going to look at how we go about winning the presidency. And here's how. The group of people who actually elect the president is called the Electoral College. Each state gets a specific number called congressional representation, which is based on the state's population. So basically, to win, you need to have a majority of Electoral College votes. This favors a two-party system, because two main political parties with more than two political parties becomes very hard to win. You got to think of it as like a pie. Okay? On this pie, you need to get more than the 51%. If you have two parties, it's a little bit easier. It's kind of like you have two people eating one pizza. But if you have 10 people eating one pizza, it becomes really hard to get more than half. And even if you still get the most of the pizza, that's still not the majority of the pizza. You need more than, so you need 51%, which in our Electoral College system is 270 votes. So, let's look at some of those vocab words. So up above here, the vocab words, a list of individuals. The list kind of looks like it is a slate. A representative of a political party who votes for president and vice president, we kind of already just said it, is the elector. That's part of those electoral process. Okay, the number of representatives plus the number of senators we just talked about is called congressional representation. Citizens who are registered to vote are my popular vote. It's like you, your parents, the majorities of Americans who are over 18 that are registered can actually vote. So it's a large number. With electors, there's only 538 of those. And when registered citizens actually vote, so those citizens who are registered to vote are called the electorate. Remember, it's longer because there's more of them. The electors, there's only 538, so it's a shorter word. The electorate, there's millions of them, okay? And the popular vote is when they actually go and vote. So now, I'm going to go down to the actual steps to win the presidency. You guys can see here the words again. Here are the steps to win the presidency. I remember it as the PSUs, the step 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you guys got a blank piece of paper during your SOL, I would write down immediately PSEW on that blank piece of paper, because that comes from your brain. You've learned it. You know it. It's just a kind of a thing to kind of trigger your memory and say, oh yeah, that's right, I got it. Like, we were taught this during our practices during class time. So step one is really, those people go and vote. Okay? Popular vote's held. Step two, slate of electors. So once the popular vote votes, they're choosing, either they're going to say all these electors are going to go to Democrat or Republican. If the majority of the votes go to Democrat, then they're going to choose a slate of electors for Democrats. Same is true of Republicans. The majority of the state's population votes for Republicans. They're going to go and choose the slate of electors for Republicans. So the popular vote chooses the slate, and then the winner take all gets elected. So the slate of electors, there's 13 in Virginia specifically, because remember that's based on congressional representation. The Senate plus the House of Representatives. The slate of electors then all vote based on the popular vote. It's not, one of them's not going to break away. It's not like, oh, you got half, you got half. Nope, all of them go and vote for the same person based on the popular vote. Then the electors actually go to vote, and the winner of 270 votes becomes president. 270 electoral votes. That's the key number, because it's more than half. Now, if you're running for president, what should you do? Well, you should target the more densely populated states, the states with a lot of people like California, New York, Florida, Texas. However, if you think it's going to be a tight election, you're going to want to pay attention to those less populated states too, because it could be really close in those states that are only like 3 electors or 4 electors. Those states really could push you over the edge. They come in handy. So, what states would political parties focus on? And it says population per square mile by state 2000 census. If you said the more populated states, you'd be right. If you went even deeper and challenged yourself and thought, not just the more populated states, but also if it's a close election, I would also go into those states too, then you'd be also correct. Okay? So if you look at this, during the 2000 presidential election, Al Gore actually won the popular vote, just by a hair. But he lost the presidency because he, more importantly, lost the electoral vote. So, the reason he lost is because those electors are the most important thing. And you can see up here, look at New Hampshire. The one red state surrounded by blue states. If that had gone to Al Gore, because it was a tight election, he would have won. He would have had 270. And George Bush would not have had 270. Okay? Well, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to go through the checkpoint and check with your teacher about checking your packet. Okay? Thank you very much.